Okay, all right. Well, it's 8:02. Why don't we get started here? Thank you all for joining us this evening. This is our unit leader orientation for week 5 of the 2023 season. The summer is flying by here. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. This session is being recorded and we will post the video to our YouTube channel. That'll go up sometime tomorrow. I have to edit and render and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get it loaded up onto the YouTube channel by tomorrow at the latest, and we'll send out a link to that. So if any parents or leaders weren't able to make it this evening, they'll be able to catch us on the recording there. So why don't we get rolling here this evening? You are joined tonight by myself. I'm Brian Murray. I'm the camp director at RSR, and Josh Clark, our program director. Quinn Chickalella is actually not going to be with us tonight. He is enjoying the sights and sounds of West Virginia this fine evening. He's down with the National Jamboree, but he will be back with us next week. But he was unable to join us for the meeting tonight due to his responsibilities down there on the Jamboree staff. So we'll talk about his commissioner type stuff on his behalf. So I wanted to start off, actually, let me first start off by saying that if you have questions during the presentation here, feel free if you want to, raise your digital hand or ask a question or throw something in the chat box. Josh and I are both keeping an eye on the chat box and able to answer questions as we go or direct it to a verbal response. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So let's start with Sunday check-in. Check-in time for camp on Sunday is 1 o'clock. That is the time that the staff will be ready to begin the intake process for the troops that are coming in. So because of that, we ask that you not get there too early. Parents, scouts often don't enjoy sitting up in the parking lot for a long time waiting for us, but we have things that are going on prior to 1 o'clock staff meeting. We're doing preparation for the campsites. We're doing some different things to get ready for your arrival. So we'll be ready by 1 o'clock for you, but we ask that you not get there too early. I know that units want to connect and make sure that everybody's present in the parking lot. That's fine, but at 1 o'clock, we will send a staff guide up to greet the troop and to begin the check-in process. When that happens, we're going to ask that the scoutmaster or designee, one adult leader from each troop, please bring a troop roster with you to the camp office to see me to check in. We're asking you to bring that roster down so that we can compare who's actually there, right? So if you've got scouts that last minute are cancellations, or you've got a scout that's a no-show, you're not really sure why they're not there, or you know that this scout's coming in later today because they're finishing up a baseball game and they're going to catch up with you when you're done. We compare your notes with our registration and make sure that we've got everybody accounted for. While that's happening down in the office, the staff guide is going to take the rest of the troop with the rest of the adult leaders down to the campsite. And we would ask that you please send the medical forms with that group. Do not bring the medical forms down to the office with that single adult leader, for the reason that while you're still up at the office with me or waiting after a couple of other units to go through, the medical officer might be ready in your campsite, ready to begin working on the med checks, and they can't start because the medical forms are with the person up in the office. So send them with the scouts, and the leaders and that scoutmaster can catch up once we're done with the office check-in. The staff guide will have a vehicle permit for you to bring one vehicle down to the campsite to transport gear. We do ask that you please keep that to the one vehicle with the pass. Bring that down to check in your gear, and when the gear is all dropped off, all vehicles need to be back up in the parking lot. We don't keep vehicles at the campsite. You can keep a detached trailer at the campsite, but all vehicles need to be back up to the parking lot once you're done with load in. If you have multiple vehicles that have gear, it's okay to do a relay where one goes down, drops off gear, comes back up, the next one goes down. But we really need to keep the number of vehicles on the camp roads limited. We have a lot of troops in camp next week. We have 21 different troops. That's not counting a couple of provisionals. We have 21 different troops in 10 campsites. That means a lot of you are going to be doubling up, some cases possibly tripling up, and that leads to a lot of cars trying to get into very narrow spaces, and we can't accommodate more than one vehicle per troop to do that. Just a reminder, and I'll hit this again I think later on in the slides, but those of you that are in the area, I know Some of you are coming from a little further away, but it's been a fairly tropical summer here in the greater Post and Kill area, and we've gotten an awful lot of rain. And so the fields, the campsites, they can be a bit muddy right now. And we've got some real torn up fields and torn up areas from vehicles that went off the road. So we want to keep the cars headed just down to the campsites and back. We said that you could keep your trailers down there. As Josh said in the chat there, 1 per troop is fine. But we do ask that the trailers be kept clear of the road. So each campsite has sort of a transition space between the road and the campsite. We don't want them into the campsites where they're going to be tearing up ruts in those sites or driving over water lines, things like that. But we also need them out of the way of the road so that emergency traffic can get through and camp traffic can get through. So each site has a little bit of a transition space. That's the spot where the trailer can stay for the course of the week. All right, talking about a few health and safety items here. All adults coming to camp do have to have current youth protection training certification lasting through your time at camp and be cleared through the New York State background check prior to your arrival. Now, we sent out a Google form link back late May, early June, asked that you please register any adults who may be coming to camp with that background check. If you have not done so, or you're unsure if they've been registered, the link is right on the front page of our camp website at rsrbsa.org. You go in there, enter name and date of birth, a couple of other pieces of information, and we take care of that background check for you. It's at no cost to the unit. You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to enter the information. Sometimes say, well, why don't we just pull the information from the registrations in Blackpug? The reason for that is particularly within the Scouts BSA summer camp model, a lot of you have rotational leadership. And so maybe one leader was put into Blackpug as the kind of the placeholder for somebody who's going to be here all week, but that person's really going to be 5 different adults that's going to rotate through taking shifts. We need to catch all of those different those different groups there. So we would ask you to please make sure that you enter all of the adult leaders into that background check. We also stress, put in there any adults who you think might decide at the last minute to come for a visit and stay overnight. If you've got a parent of maybe a first-year camper who's a little unsure, a little nervous, wants to maybe, you think that there's a possibility that person could, just decide to drive up after work on a Tuesday and say, you know what, I'm going to stay overnight tonight because my scout would like me to stay. If that person has not been background checked, we cannot let them stay. So to anticipate any of those kinds of scenarios, just background check all of your leaders, right? It costs you nothing other than the couple of seconds to enter their name and date of birth in there. We can take care of that for you and make sure that they are cleared. There's a question about whether or not trailers can be brought up on Saturday evening. Yes, the trailer can be brought in, but again, please make sure that we're staying on the roads, that we're making sure that we're not blocking access into the campsites, things like that. We would ask that they don't come in on Saturday morning because we do have a group of Cub Scouts that are here with us this week, and they're going to be still here for a couple hours in the morning on Saturday, and then they'll be headed out. Another piece to this health and safety aspect is that if any adult leaders that are going to be remaining in camp for 72 hours or more, that's cumulative over the course of the full week, do need to be registered with BSA. So they are to be registered to your unit as something, an assistant scoutmaster, committee member, whatever the case may be. They should be registered with your unit with BSA. If they are staying less than 72 hours cumulative, that policy does not currently apply, but I'm going to put on another hat of mine for the moment as a council rep for Safe Scouting and remind you that there were some changes announced by National early this spring that take effect on September 1st, that as of September 1st, that 72-hour rule that we've had for a number of years goes away. And any adult leader, any adult, period, because sometimes people get confused, leader versus parent, any adult 18 and over that attends any overnight scouting activity starting September 1st must be registered with BSA as a dues paying member of that unit, so, or a multiple member of that unit. So if you're registered with the pack and you're paying your dues with the pack, you can be dual registered with the troop or with one troop and another troop or whatever the case may be. But that is a change in national policy. Doesn't affect summer camp this year. It will affect summer camp next year, and it'll affect any activities after September 1st, including the council camporee, any district events, Klondikes and the like, as well as any of your own troop activities, any troop campouts that you go on starting September 1st. Parents will need to be registered with BSA in order to attend those overnights. We could talk more about that next week when you're here during one of our leader meetings. If anyone has any questions on that national policy, I'd be happy to share more information on that. But I just wanted to put that out there so that you have that information. We do identify folks in camp through a number of different ways. We have wristbands. The staff wear these sort of black and red silicone wristbands that identifies us. We also wear name badges that helps to identify us. Adult leaders will also receive, if you are registered with the BSA and you're cleared to stay for more than 72 hours, you'll receive a silicone wristband like this, but it's a different color. It's actually glow in the dark, so we can track you at night. So we have that. And for the leaders that are not staying for 72 hours that maybe are not registered with BSA, they will have a kind of a Tyvek band, like those carnival wristbands, that you get at the fair, to designate those different groups. We do ask you to help us out. It is possible people come down from the parking lot, might go to the office, sign in. If there's nobody happens to be at the counter, they might make it all the way to your troop site without getting a wristband. Just if that happens, just please guide them back up to the site, up to the office at the earliest convenience to be able to get that wristband so that we know who is here and who's not. And if there's anybody that you see that doesn't have the wristband, point them out to a staff member so that we can make sure that they are checked in and cleared. For any scouts that need to leave early during camp, prior to Saturday morning, we have a camper release form. There's a copy of it available on our website. Again, rsrbsa.org. If you go to the forms page and go down, you'll see the camper release form. So scouts going to a baseball game or a doctor's appointment, they can be signed out of camp. An important thing with those camper release forms is that when the scout is being signed out of camp, one of the leaders that is staying in the campsite needs to sign that form. So one of the leaders that's still in camp. And that is a check to make sure that if that scout leaves, that you in the troop leadership command know that that scout has left and are not concerned that there might be a lost camper or something to that effect. So that's something that parents can have filled out before they arrive. You can have it filled out. The other thing I'd mention, just as I've been seeing this a lot, encourage the scouts, if they know that they're being picked up for something, have their gear waiting for their parent or grandparent or whoever's picking them up at the office. We oftentimes get moms, dads, grandparents, or whatever, they're showing up to pick up their scouts, and they have to schlep all the way out to one of the outer campsites to pick up their scouts and their gear when they may be unfamiliar with the property and maybe not dressed appropriately with footwear and things like that to make that hike. So have the scouts meet them up at the office, and that's a lot easier for them for the pickup. Please encourage the buddy system for all the scouts in camp to travel together. We use the sign-in, sign-out system so that when scouts are leaving their program areas, they sign out. When they go to the next one, they sign in a binder. We also have the sign-in, sign-out boards in your campsite so that they can do the same. When they sign out in the morning to go to aquatics, they put their name on the tag or on the hook for aquatics so that you know where they're headed. For our emergency procedures, which we'll talk about at breakfast on Monday morning, we have two sirens. One is the main siren that we have that goes off 3 times a day for a test at 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. Goes off for a second or so at those times. You can ignore it. It's just a test of the system. But if the siren goes off for a minute or longer, that means we've got to gather everybody because we have a lost camper or there's a fire in camp or some sort of an emergency where we need to take attendance quickly and get everybody to a safe condition. And so if that siren goes off, we ask everybody to please gather at the Tuscadaga field, which is the field in between Tuscarora and Onondaga campsites, perhaps better known as where the Gaga ball pit is. Right in front of the Gaga ball pit is where we will line folks up. Have the troop remain standing until everyone is present, and that does include the adult leaders. And when everybody's present, they can sit down, and then we can look across the field really quickly to see where things are, to see who's got everybody in attendance and who doesn't. Question in the chat about knowing the campsites. For the most part, yes, I do need to review some of the campsites because I know we've had some, we're watching as groups were coming in late, and we're watching the scouts being added to troops in this kind of late period prior to camp there. I do still need to go through and make sure that the campsite assignments still fit for some of the troops. Some have gotten a little bigger than were projected, and that may cause a little bit of shuffling, and I will be working on that in the next day or two to make, alerts you to any changes that might be to what you thought was the campsites. But campsite assignments are a little bit more complicated than they were, just a few years ago. It's a good thing. We have a more diverse program, but it does mean there's a lot more what youth protection rules that go into effect. And so when figuring out the number of tents that a troop needs, you have to take into account not just age of adults and youth, but also boys and girls and males and female adults and a lot of other factors, as well as the fact that no two campers more than 2 years age and apart are able to share a tent. That's a BSA National Youth Protection Guideline. So we'll be looking at all those with your rosters and just to make sure that we've got the right number of tents for each troop. And if we need to make adjustments, we will. The second emergency procedure siren that we have is what we call the Yelp, which is for severe weather. If we have some severe weather headed our way, we'll blow that siren. It sounds an awful lot like an ambulance type siren. And we ask everybody to please gather in the dining hall or Seneca, whichever building is closer to where you are when you hear the siren go off. We will take attendance in both locations and make sure that your troop is accounted for, even if they are split between the two locations. Our active shooter policy, which we've had to introduce over the last few years, is quite simply, we don't have, to use the terminology, hardened facilities on the property in terms of buildings that can be used in a protective situation like that. So the best course of action for scouts, should a situation like that arise, is for everyone to run into the woods. We would, to the degree possible, to get communication out through our staff radios, through the Remind system, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, to alert people that there's a situation in camp. And we ask that everybody just run to the woods and hide until law enforcement comes in and is able to use their communications to call people back in to the camp proper. We will check in. We'll give each troop a strip of flagging tape, surveyor's tape, that we ask you to put on the leader tent. That would be the person in your troop that is kind of in charge for the week, or the most, that person. And the purpose for that is that if we have to, at night after folks have gone to bed, if we have to come and find a scout, maybe we've gotten a phone call from home, there's an emergency at home, we need to get a scout, or there's some severe weather headed our way, we need to get everybody up to one of the shelters. We want to be able to go directly to that troop leader who knows where that scout is, or who can help get the rest of the troop up and rolling in anticipation of that weather. So that's what that is for. Just tie it on the outrigger of your tent or on the bunk if you're in a lean-to, so that we know who to go to in the event of an overnight communications emergency. We've got a picture of our health officer, Tyler Henderson, up there, just so you can get to see who he is and recognize him as a point of contact for health and safety issues in camp. And a reminder that all medications brought to camp do need to be in their original containers. That includes over-the-counter medications. Sometimes we have situations where a parent and a child, or two siblings, use the same medication, so they send a bottle that maybe has the parent's name on it rather than the scout's, or they send one bottle and it's to cover two kids. We can't do that. The health department does not allow it. The prescription on the bottle has to match the person who's taking the medication. So please send all medications in their original containers. We do have also 3 AEDs located around camp. One's here in the camp office. One travels with Tyler at all times, or the health officer that is on duty. We will have at times other health officers who may be stepping in to cover a shift for Tyler. As many of you know, he also works as a professional at the council office, and so we're trying to get him some time to be able to get down and take care of his day job as well. So we've got some other folks who are stepping in, and thankfully we appreciate covering shifts. They will have the AED if they're on duty, and the third AED is located at the waterfront in the ice house, which is the guard headquarters down there. I talked about limiting vehicles in the camp. The camp speed limit is 10 miles per hour. That does begin at the ranger's house. There is a stop sign in front of the ranger's house both ways. And as soon as you get onto that dirt road, it is 10 miles per hour the rest of the way throughout the camp. We really ask that you please respect that speed limit. The ranger has dogs that might sometimes be out in the yard, or approaching the vehicles. And obviously we have scouts all throughout the camp that we want to make sure that we keep safe. I'd also recommend, by the way, that the road up to the camp, Davit Lake Road is a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit, and we ask you to please respect that speed limit as well. One, we like to maintain friendly relationships with our neighbors. They know where all the traffic is headed on a Sunday afternoon in July and August. And also because I cannot remember the last time I've driven down Davit Lake Road without seeing a deer on the side of the road. So in order to protect the deer and your fender, let's try to keep the speed limits down on Davit Lake Road. Talked about keeping the vehicles out of grassy areas. I know we talk about this every year, but really, truly, we've got a lot of mud up here. There's a lot of soft ground from the record rainfall that we've had this month. Some of you, unfortunately, when you get to your campsite Sunday, are going to see some really big ruts that your predecessors have left in the campsites because they did not follow our request to please keep their vehicles out of the campsites. So please keep them out. We try to make sure that the campsites are left in as good or better condition than when we found them, right? And so that means we want to make sure that for the next group coming in, they're not dealing with big muddy ruts through their campsite or through the fields. Please, no riders in the backs of trucks or trailers either. That's something which is a big concern at scouting activities and a source of a lot of injuries and worse. Communication. We have, whoops, sorry, I hit.
You're good on this end.
Yeah, I know. On my end, I accidentally hit a button that popped up a bunch of screens on my screen, so apologies for that. But I'm back. For communication, we have the Remind alert system that I referenced a moment ago. Remind is an app we've been using for a few years now. It works great for broadcasting alerts to adult leaders throughout the week at camp. Your class code for next week is at 5 RSR 23. So if you've got the app, you can just go in there, add a class at 5 RSR 23, or you can text that number to the number that you see on your screen there, 81010. When you do, that will add you to our distribution list for next week. We'll send out alerts about honor troop and reminders about program, or also alerts about changes in weather, things of that sort. We don't abuse it. We don't send out that many messages, couple messages a day at most usually, but it's a really good tool for communication so that we can share information with all of you. We also continue to have a newspaper that is delivered to the campsite, or to the dining room table every morning, so that you can get program schedules, funny stories and trivia and stuff like that for your scouts. Firestarter is also now covered or carried on Facebook. Ed Keelan, our editor of the paper, posts it to Google Drive and shares the link on his Facebook page, which also doubles as the Facebook page for the RSR Thunderbird Club, our alumni association. So parents that want to check that out can follow Ed's page and get the newspapers each day. We have some communications up here. My email address is campdirector@rsrbsa.org. If you have questions, you can certainly feel free to reach out to me there. Our cook, Sean, is at food@rsrbsa.org, but I'm also going to give you another way to communicate with him in just a second. Medical is a resource for any issues related to questions related to medical. Tyler will receive those. If you have to send, somebody forgot their immunization dates or something like that, and it needs to be emailed to the camp, emailing it to medical@rsrbsa.org is the best way to go. Josh's email is also programdirector@rsrbsa.org, so it follows the same format as mine, just program instead of camp, if you have questions about the program for the week. For our dining services, we do have a buffet style service, and Sean is back with us again this year. This is his third year with us, and he does a great job taking care of us all summer long. And this year, he had a great idea of creating a Google form to collect all the information related to food allergies, dietary restrictions, any kind of special needs with food. So this could be dietary, it could be medical, it could be religious, any sort of special needs related to the dining hall service. If you just go ahead and hit that QR code, it'll pull up a Google form where you can enter the information. And this gives Sean live updated information for the scouts. He can pull that right up and see who he needs to support. We'd ask if you do have anybody that has any of these special needs that they do so as soon as possible, just because Sean has to order ahead. He'll be ordering in the next 24 hours or so food for the beginning of next week. And we need to make sure that we have that on hand to support them. There's also a link to this form on the camp website across the top bar of our camp website, the menu there, you may have to go over to the More button if you're on a desktop, or just drop down on a mobile and you'll see food as one of the, or dining is one of the options there. Click on that, and on that page is also a link to this. Yep, I'm gonna have Josh type that into the chat there. It's at 5 RSR 23 is the code there for the Remind app for next week. I do need to put the @ sign, I believe, in front of that, at 5 RSR 23. Other things for lunch, Wednesday lunch will be in the campsites for everybody. We will deliver the food out to the sites. Patrol cooking is optional at other times during the week as well. And we have an a la carte menu that you can pick off of. Folks have asked, can we split it? Can we do, a little of this, a little of that? We can. Also, when you're doing patrol cooking, one thing we do ask is that there does need to be adult supervision back in that campsite. We can't just send like kids that are working on cooking merit badge or something back to the site to go do their thing, and Scoutmasters decide, we're going to get the meal in the dining hall instead because menu looks good tonight. We do need to make sure we have supervision in both locations. If you have scouts in the dining hall, that's fine. Scouts in the campsite doing cooking, that's fine. You can split them up as long as there's adults in both locations. We will do garbage collection each night. We ask that you please put the trash outside your campsite before dinner, and we pick it up pretty soon after dinner. But of course, what happens after dinner is everybody scatters to all of the evening programs and nobody goes back to the site to put out the trash. So please put the trash out before everyone heads down to the dining hall for dinner. And you just leave that outside your campsite and we'll come around and pick it up. The exceptions to that are Shindaku and Algonquin. The troops in those two campsites are right next to the garbage room, next to the dining hall. We ask that you just go ahead and put that in the trailer before the end of dinner, and it'll get taken up with the dining hall trash. Same thing with Oneida, which is the campsite directly behind the office. If you would put the trash out at the corner of the driveway in front of the office, like all the way on the road, so that as the trailer comes up, we can just grab the trash on the way by. And otherwise we'll spin around the camp and pick up everybody's trash after dinner. Okay, we will have our family night barbecue on Wednesday night. Serving for the barbecue does begin at 6 o'clock. With this, we oftentimes get folks that are arriving a bit later. I understand parents are coming from work or traveling from greater distances, totally get that. But we start serving at 6 o'clock, and basically we will get through the line, and depending upon the size of the week and how fast we move through the line and everything, we could be through the line before some parents arrive. And we hold it for a little while before we call seconds for folks. But if you're coming to the barbecue, we would strongly encourage you to get here by 6:30. That's about the time that we usually are calling for seconds. And after that, we can't guarantee that there will be food available for folks that arrive later than that. So we try to get past that point, but 6:30 is a good rule of thumb. If you're here by 6:30, you should be in good shape. But try not, consider that in terms of the travel arrangements coming up to camp. We do have tickets available online. You can go to trcscouting.org. You can also go to our website at rsrbsa.org, and there's a link right on the front page. trcscouting.org, go to the council calendar, and you'll see the barbecue listed as an event on the calendar. Barbecue and Parents Night is Wednesday night next week. Tickets are, as I said, available online. This has worked out really well for us. We started it last year, and the overwhelming number of tickets now are being purchased online. It certainly shortens the logistics of coming in because you don't have to purchase your tickets. Tickets are $16 for those ages 11 and up, $10 for age 10 and under. A reminder that even if you've purchased your tickets ahead of time, you do still need to stop at the camp office on the way into camp. Everybody needs to stop at the camp office every time they come into camp. You're going to sign in. We're going to give you a wristband that's just as we talked about before. And at that time, we'll give you the actual meal tickets. So if you just walk on by the office on the way down the hill, it's going to be unfortunate when you have to walk back up the hill to get your meal tickets, because that's where they actually are when you pick them up. It's like the will call booth for the concerts. After that, we'll have a campfire, which will follow. It says 8 o'clock. It's actually usually more about 8:15 that we are able to get the campfire gathered up and started. And that campfire is put on by the Scouts. So we get some real great entertainment on Wednesday night. Troop photos will be taken on Monday evening. They are $8 each. And we take them, weather permitting, right after dinner on Monday night. And they get printed up, with fancy border and everything. We do ask that you know how many photos you would like to purchase when we're taking the picture, so we can write that down so that the order can be placed. Even if you don't have the money at that time, we can settle up at a later point during the week, but we do need the number up front. So if you want to check in with parents before Monday, get a count to be able to provide to us. The other question we're going to ask you is if you would like your chartered organization's name printed on the photo, the church or the VFW hall that sponsors your unit. And if you do, we'll print that on the picture as well. All right. I think I'm going to turn it over to Josh now, and he's going to talk a bit about some of our program opportunities for next week.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Brian, you want to just put everything on the board? So we have a couple of resources for our scouts and adults leaders. We have merit badge pamphlets throughout camp. So a scout going to various program areas. Had a skill on my mouth. Going to their merit badges can get their merit badge book at that area. We have some merit badges that aren't completed at camp. There are some what we call pre or post requirements that are done either before they're getting the merit badge here or after. And there's a verification form that you can fill out either in the adult leader packet piece of paper the day of you get to camp, or you can find that on our resource tab on the website. We'll also have a midweek progress reports available Wednesday after lunch. We'll pull up the spreadsheet and you guys can check to make sure your scouts are where they need to be in their merit badges. So this year, as Brian mentioned, we have our Sunday campfire and that Wednesday campfire hosted by our scouts. Our campfire game Tuesday is going to be Pirates. So I got my little pirate hat over here. Have them find their little treasure out there, see how much trouble I can get myself into. Our open program, our open programs usually typically in our evening and afternoons. Open shoots, open swims, open climbs, open crafts. Our scouting skills, we host the Outdoor Ethics Awareness Award and a couple others that are both Scout and Scouter. So a lot of the stuff going on during our open program period is welcome for everyone in camp. Additionally, our Trailer First Class takeout. If you have scouts that are in Trailer First Class, but the material isn't being covered, or a scout that isn't taking Trailer First Class and you want to get just 1 or 2 requirements done, or a handful that you can't quite do because you don't have the materials, or it's a complicated one, like how to navigate at night. That's a pretty difficult one for most new adult leaders. We can facilitate those requirements for you. So if you want to stop on in on Sunday or Monday, talk to either myself or the Trailer First Class Director, Dan. We'll help figure out a schedule during the week to get those done with you. We also have our polar bear swim on at 6:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is an early swim in the morning. And there's a couple of adult programs. Most of them will be the aquatic supervisor program, which does the swimming and water rescue and paddlecraft safety cards. We have a couple others, the Trek Safely, the LNT awareness, the climb on safety, all happening throughout the week. I believe we also have a IOLS trainer coming in week 5. So we'll give out information on that on Sunday if anyone is interested in doing the introduction to outdoor leadership skills, any new or untrained adult leaders. And then if any of those scouts don't complete merit badges with us, or they needed to go home and complete a couple of more requirements in a setting that's not camp, we host a merit badge completion day, August 13th, where we have them come on in. They can either prove that they did the requirements, or they can say, go back out in one of the canoes and prove that learn and prove that they can do the J stroke in their canoe so they can go straight finally. Stuff like that.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. So we have something we switched to last year was online record keeping for our merit badges, and all of the merit badge records are recorded in Blackpug. That's the system that you use to register for camp, and so you have access to that through your camp registration. You can see at the image at the top of the screen there, it looks like the header on the unit roster in Blackpug, and if you look across the top, there's 3 tabs: participants, payment, and reports. If you click on the reports tab, and at any point after we start camp on Monday, start programs on Monday, you will start to see merit badges being populated. If you go down to the report that talks about unit advancement records, summary, or I forget the other term for the other file, but the individual, I think it is. But you'll see the records being updated. Now, some of our programs are able to update and do update throughout the week. Some will be able to do so, as Josh was talking about, on Wednesday, the kind of midweek checkup, and then again at the end of the week on Friday when we're completing the merit badge records. And really what that comes down to is kind of the logistics of their area. For example, at the waterfront, they have 3 different instructors that are at least 18 years of age that are able to sign off on merit badges and enter all that stuff, and they only have 5, I think it is, merit badges. At Nature, they have 1 person who's 18 and like 13 merit badges that are being instructed by the director and their staff. So it's a little tricky for some areas compared to others to do a daily tallying, but you will, if you don't get it on a daily throughout the week, you'll get it Wednesday and then again at the end of the week. Those records can be directly exported into Scoutbook. Now, we have the ability, in theory, to be able to upload all of those records from summer camp into Scoutbook. There are some exceptions to that. There's Scoutbook does not allow direct importation of rank advancements or awards, only merit badges. So, for example, anything done in Trail to First Class, like tenderfoot, second class, first class rank requirements, cannot be exported into Scoutbook. Those will have to be manually entered by the unit. Same thing with awards like snorkeling, mile swim, things of that sort. But merit badge records can go up. The one caveat I give on that is, unfortunately, BSA is not really known for its high quality information technology systems. And so the export out of Blackpug works really well. The import into Scoutbook on my end doesn't always work well. Like, for example, I'm still trying to get week 2's records uploaded in. It takes many hours and oftentimes has many glitches. So we will try, and we're going to keep working on trying to get those records uploaded. But even if I'm not able to get them up there, we run into any sort of technical issues, you always have access to your records. The registration contact has the ability to go into that reports page, pull up all the records from camp. They can print blue cards if they want. They can pull up the spreadsheets and manually enter or upload them themselves into Scoutbook. So there are options. But as Josh said, progress reports are available in the office on Wednesday. I do want to highlight something that Rick Roby mentioned in the chat, which is Josh talked about the IOLS course that we'll be able to offer next week. And that is Rick is our instructor for that. So thank you, Rick, for volunteering to do that. And as he says, it's an all day Tuesday and Thursday class. And basically all day while the kids are at program, you'll be able to go down to the dining hall to eat with them for the meals on those 2 days. But when they go off to program, you go off to program and you learn the IOLS skills. And you do need to be able to participate in both days to be able to complete the course. Wanted to talk a little bit about something this kind of come up a couple times throughout this season, so we wanted to speak about this with all of you, and that is, kind of the idea of adult supervision, right? That's a very important part of the scouting program, obviously year round, and the same is true at summer camp. We have a great staff. They're well-trained staff, and they provide a strong program throughout the day, as well as health and safety services and a quality food service. But they can't be everywhere at once. And there are situations that we've been running into where groups of scouts, particularly, not just this summer, but we've had it come up a few times this summer, groups of scouts behaving in perhaps unscout-like behavior in some of those areas where folks congregate. I'm thinking specifically of places like the shower house, the Gaga ball pit, the basketball court. where groups of scouts may go and there isn't necessarily staff supervision. We don't have somebody standing outside the shower house for 4 hours every night just to make sure that people are behaving themselves in that area. So we would ask for some help here. As one of the reasons that we have to do the background check on all of you is that the Department of Health considers each of the adult leaders that's in camp to be an extension of the camp staff. You are part of because you're providing the overnight supervision. We're not a camp like, let's say, a Jinjacook or someplace where the campers go up and the staff watches them at night in cabins and things like that. You're a part of us in that. And so we're asking for some help and encouraging adult leaders within the troops. If you've got a large group of kids that are headed to any of those kinds of places, gaga ball, basketball, the shower house, it would be really great if you could send an adult leader or two along with them. Just somebody to keep an eye on things, make sure that everything's okay, and to kind of manage things if situation gets out of hand. That can include calling staff, right? Getting one of us to come down to help support. But we find that the scouts are a lot better behaved when they've got some adult supervision and guidance to help support them in that. So something to please consider and encourage you to do throughout the week. The other thing we'd mention is that we welcome your support within the program areas, and we don't usually ask for this, and I want to preface this by saying this isn't like a staffing thing where we need help because of limited staff or whatnot. It's more of a response to the fact that we've talked to a number of leaders over the years, and especially over the last couple of weeks, that have been saying, like, I'm just sitting in the campsite all day. I'd love to do something. I think I'd love to help out in a program area, or give me something to do for a couple hours during an afternoon. We know that there's also leaders that would like to say, I've got my book, or I've got my work laptop, and I've got plenty of things to do. That's fine. That's cool too. But if you are one of those ones who's saying, like, no, I'm out of camp, I want to have fun, I want to do some stuff with the kids, let Josh or I know. We'll be happy to point you in the direction of an area where you might be able to help out. Maybe it's sit up in the lifeguard chair and serve as an extra set of eyes to free up one of the lifeguards to do other activities with the scouts, and you can work on your tan up there. Maybe it's helping provide support in another program area. But if you're interested in doing something like that, let Josh or I know, and we'd be happy to point you in a direction of someplace where you might be able to really help out with the program. This is not an obligatory thing. It's more just, as I said, a response to some unit leaders who have come to us and said, we'd like to do a little bit more. So as I mentioned at the top, Quinn couldn't be with us tonight because he's down at the Jamboree, but I did want to speak real quickly on a couple of things related to our commissioner service. Quinn will be around every day to conduct the campsite visit, to check things out within the sites, make sure everything's orderly and healthy within the sites. You have the opportunity to do campsite improvement projects to earn extra points on your daily inspection score. And the top score each day is going to be presented with the opportunity to be the honor troop of the day. And that means you get to take down the flag that evening and put up the flag and your troop flag the following morning. I mentioned that, because of the number of troops we have, 21 troops and 10 campsites, it's going to be a lot of doubling up. I know one of the questions that Quinn will have for you at the beginning of the week on Monday is, do you want to be graded together as one campsite, or do you want to be graded separately? In other words, this troop's got that part of the campsite and this troop's got that part of the campsite. We're splitting the latrine down the middle, and I don't want to be responsible for their litter, that kind of thing. So whichever of those arrangements you work out with your troop, just let Quinn know on day one so that he can keep the scores accordingly. You'll get the Scoutmaster's packet on Sunday, which will have the different things to be posted on the bulletin board, fire guard charts, things like that, other duty rosters. A lot of those documents, pretty much everything that we can kind of produce in a PDF fashion, is also available on the resources tab of the camp website. So if you go there, you're welcome. There's duty rosters and things like that you could fill out ahead of time before you even get to camp. Quinn and we all ask, if you have any issues, a leaky tent, something that's been damaged, maybe a plumbing issue at the latrine or something like that, please let us know as soon as possible. We'd like to be able to take care of that. Quinn does a great job of responding to folks' needs. And we really hate it when we don't know anything about an issue all week long. We find out in the closing evaluation. So, somebody puts in the evaluation that, there was this issue in their tent or in their campsite. We didn't know anything about it all week long. We'd love to be able to solve that problem for you. So please let us know. Let Quinn is your liaison and resource. Of course, you can talk to Josh or I or Joel, our ranger, at any time as well. But Quinn's out in the sites daily for that reason, to connect with you guys. The latrines, as part of the daily latrine cleaning process, we ask that one small, like Scout handful, not the biggest Scoutmaster paw, but the smallest Scout handful of wood chips gets dropped down each seat hole each day. And that helps with the smell. The other thing that helps with the smell of the latrines, keeping the lids of the toilets closed. That allows the process to work the way it's designed, and the smell goes out the chimney stack instead of being in the latrine itself. All right, quartermaster, if you need gear, cooking equipment for cooking in sight, or equipment to do service projects or something like that, we have that in the quartermaster. That is open anytime the trading post is open. So feel free to go and see Janet. She's our trading post manager this year. And if there's gear that you need, she can help you out with that. We do ask that you give her a chance, usually the first 15, 20 minutes after she opens, after a meal, there's that big slushy run. Give her a few minutes to get through that, and then she'd be happy to take care of whatever needs you might have for the quartermaster. Usually the quartermaster and the trading post opens up at about 11 in the morning, so it's not open the first couple hours after breakfast. If there's anything that you need, please see one of us up in the office. There's usually one of us, almost always one of us up here in the office. We'll be happy to help you. And we have a lot of the common items like toilet paper and garbage bags and things like that up here already. So we can just hand that right to you if that's what you're looking for. Okay, otherwise we'll be happy to go down and get what you need during the hours that the training post is not open. And this note from Quinn, got a problem? Let him know. He'll do a great job helping to solve that problem for you. All right, so that's our formal presentation here for this evening. So we want to turn it over to you all. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask about camp for next week, I'm going to stop talking here, and you can open up your mic or you put it into the chat box, however you'd like to ask questions. Question about power in the sites for CPAP. So actually, one of the improvements that was made to the camp this year is that we have been running extension cords into a few of the campsites in the past to be able to provide help for CPAP machines. This year, through the funds provided by the Thunderbird Club, our alumni association, we have run more permanent electricity hookups into 4 campsites that we were able to reach. That would be Oneida, Shindaku, Algonquin, and Iroquois. Those sites now have a post with an outlet where you can plug in, and it is designed for CPAP. And yeah, we know that a cell phone or two is going to get plugged into there, and that's perfectly fine too. But that's why they're there. It's for CPAP help. The other thing that we did is we know that we can't reach electricity to several of our sites, particularly in the outer part of the camp. But we did purchase a couple of battery packs that are designed for that purpose, and we can lend those out as well. So some of you have your own battery packs. That's great. You can charge them in places like the dining hall or the health lodge porch or wherever there's electricity. Somebody emailed me the other day about a solar powered battery. That's fantastic. But if you do need CPAP and you're not in one of those sites that has the electrification, we do have a couple of the battery packs that we are able to loan out as well. Other questions?
Hey, Brian Breslin here from Troop 3062.
Hi, Brian.
We have one of our leaders and his son are going to be away until very, very late on Sunday.
Okay.
So he was talking about, trying to get up there around, 10, 11 o'clock. And I advised him probably the best thing to do is to wait until Monday morning and come up before breakfast, just because there's no guarantee of what time they'd be able to get up Sunday night. The son is he's doing 2 sets of climbing in the morning and shotgun in the afternoon. So he's not, at least for his merit badge stuff, he's not doing any waterfront stuff. So he doesn't necessarily need his, the swimming test done,
Sure.
for Monday. So I figured I'd get your opinion as to what would be the best way for him to handle that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. My suggestion would be to, if you have the medical forms for both individuals ahead of time, and you can hand them in when the unit goes through the med checks on Sunday afternoon, And then that way, you know that they're here on site. Nobody forgets them at home or anything like that. And then they can see, if they're here before breakfast, they can go to see Tyler in the dining hall at breakfast time and, get checked in with him, checked in with me, and they can get a buddy tag. And if the scout, the adult, they want to take a swim test, then they can check with the aquatic staff and should be able to do that during the free swim in the afternoon.
Perfect. One other question, the same dad, he's actually a firefighter paramedic in Schenectady.
Great.
He has an event on Tuesday afternoon into the evening that he's got to leave for. We'll still have, adult supervision that day, but he'll leave, say, around 1 o'clock. Again, he doesn't think he'd be able to get back to camp until between 11 and 12 o'clock that night. Is it better for him again to wait until the morning, or since he's already been checked in, what would be the best way to handle that one?
That's up to him. So the camp office, that door where the sign in, sign out log is never locked. It's always open. And there's usually staff up in this office until at least 10:30, sometimes 11 o'clock or later, even though I don't like that all the time. But so if he wants to come up at 11 o'clock, drive late, do all that stuff, he can just sign in and then head right to the site. And as you said, he's already been checked in, so he doesn't have to worry about getting, health forms or anything like that done. But that's up to him. Or he can come in the morning. The same thing applies if he's coming at 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning. The door's always open.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yep. I had a question about reviewing the tenting and lean-to accommodations, how many per tent, bunks, cots, any need for bug nets, etc. So, we have the vast majority of our accommodations are tents, and you saw some pictures of that on the previous slide there. You saw with those they're canvas wall tents, so 9 foot by 7 foot, 9 feet wide, 7 feet deep, elevated on a wood platform, 2 cots within every tent. And that's what most of our accommodations are. Several sites do have 1, 2, 3, 4 lean-tos in them. Excuse me, not every site has a lean-to, but the lean-tos do accommodate 4 people on 2 pairs of double bunks. And so that's an additional option in certain sites. Like as I said, not all sites have bunks, or have the lean-tos, but some do. Bug nets, the bugs really haven't been that bad this summer. So, but with bug nets, everybody's sensitivity to that, it varies. Some of us, it's not an issue. They're there, they don't bother you. Some kids, if there's a single mosquito in the tent, it's going to keep them up all night long. So something like that is really kind of a personal preference matter. There really haven't been bad in terms of the quantities of bugs, but some scouts, some adults even, if there's just a few bugs, it's going to drive them nuts all night long. So that would be a personal call on that. But 2 cots per tent. The cots, again, sitting on a wood platform, elevated off the ground. The cots are elevated up, so there's room underneath the cots to stow gear, and we provide all that for them. We do allow if sometimes we get, it happens especially with Cub Scout camp, but sometimes with Scouts BSA as well. If people want to bring a tent, we do have people that bring their own tent because they've got these big, nice, family tents or whatever that they want to have. And they want to set it up in the campsite because they can zip it up and don't have to deal with bugs or anything like that. That's fine. They can do that too. We're going to provide enough tentage for everybody that's signed up, but if somebody wants to bring their own for personal preference, they're welcome to do so. Let's see. Would you like to handle when a health form lists a certain prescription dosage? Subsequent doctor advice has changed the dosage. Kevin, the question about the dosage differences, I think the greater clarity we can get, the better. And that might be a question to email to that medical@rsrbsa.org email address so that Tyler can speak to this a little bit more directly, because I don't want to say something on his behalf that might be incorrect. But I think that, the information should be consistent, or at least we should know what that is. So the medication, my guess is that the ultimate is, what does it say on the bottle? That's what we're going with.
Yep.
But if you want to read,
I'll send that in. Thank you.
Yeah, reach out to Tyler and let him know about that. All right. This question about the exchange student camping, as far as that, it's the same requirements for everybody else. So the health forms and all the, all that kind of stuff would be the same for him. There's no additional paperwork just because they're an exchange student. Our medication procedures are that medications do need to be turned over to Scouts medications do need to be turned over to the health officer when we do the med checks on Sundays. The exception to that would be emergency medications that the Scouts need to have on their person. And specifically, I'm talking about things like inhalers and EpiPens. Those are fast acting emergency, need to have it with me medications. They can keep those. Any other medications need to be turned over to the medical officer. A lot of them are controlled substances, things like that. They need to be held. Plus, we can provide, we're going to keep them locked up. We can provide refrigeration services if that's necessary for the medication. We'll refrigerate it. Tyler or the medical officer will bring those meds to each meal. And so the normal process for Scouts accessing their medication is that they go up to the health officer during or immediately after the meal. They take their meds that they need for that particular time. There are always exceptions, but typically the medications are either breakfast, lunch, dinner, or evening just before bedtime. There are some that are on a different schedule, and we will always accommodate that different schedule, but most of them are going to fall into one of those 4 categories. So the 3 mealtime meds, they'll get at the meal at the dining hall. And if it's evening, just before bed kind of medication, then Tyler or Quinn or one of us will basically deliver that medication to the campsite. We find that that's more efficient than having the Scouts walk to the health lodge, because this way we can just go around and hit the different campsites and know exactly what time it's being delivered. So that would be the process for that. All right, well, don't want to keep you any longer than is necessary. We really appreciate you all joining us this evening. We're looking forward to working with you and seeing you next week. It's been a great summer so far. We're in the midst of our Cub Scout resident camp. We just had Cub Scout day camp last week, so it's going to be fun to get back in. And they've been great. It's been fantastic having the younger Cub Scouts in camp, but we're looking forward also to getting back to the Merit Badge program and the older Scouts next week. So looking forward to seeing you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Josh and I will hang on for another minute or two if anybody has any additional questions they want to ask us. But I'm going to stop the recording at this point and wish you a good evening.
Thank you, Brian. It was very informative.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Josh.